Well, hello viewers, welcome to the home of Muc-Off. We're coming to see how they optimise and make a bicycle chain as efficient as possible, like it did very recently for Filippo Ganna when he broke the hour record. So go in and have a closer look.
Each chain that we send out to team riders has its own passport essentially, so each chain's labelled so we can follow its whole process, its whole journey really. So it comes out of a packet from Shimano, it's tested, so we've got a baseline figure, then it goes through an optimisation program and then gets sent out to riders, they send them back to us and the process gets repeated. We tend to do it 3 times, could possibly go a few more than that, but then you start to limit like sort of gear shifting and stuff like that. So the optimisation process makes the chain faster and faster, but then there becomes a period of where the optimisation process might be limiting factor on gear shifts and stuff like that. So it's down to mechanics discretion really. Kat is one of our guys that races Ironman, so these are what, like 100k a time at least, 190k maybe. So yeah, that's done a fair few miles already, this one, if it's on its 3rd round. So this has actually come back from, this was done 2nd in the World Champs, this one, and a few other big Ironman races. So we have a huge database, so you could give me a number and I could go over and have a look on the computer and it would come up with what that chain started at, where it started at in its life, to what we sent it out at, which we have a magic number, and then if it's come back to us and the conditions and all sorts of stuff. So this was raced on the 20th of August in dry conditions. It's picked up a little bit of gravel. So 80k this one's done.
And how's it look then?
It's a little bit grubby, not as grubby as I was hoping, but it's you see some. It doesn't feel great. It's a little bit gritty of how the links are moving, a little bit stiff. So hopefully we should get quite a good result on this one. So we're going to put it on dyno and we'll see what we can get. Our dyno we test on 116 links. So this chain's been cut down to 114 for Kat's bike. So I just need to move the back of the dyno. So we'll just double check that with like this arm to be nice and flat. So this is on a tension test. So everything we test on 11 speed wise and even 12 speed is all Dura-Race chains, Dura-Race drivetrain.
We actually build all the dynos and all the kit in-house, and actually all the software's written as well. So it's all very bespoke for the tests, and it allows us to be very reactive. So when things come in for like the hour record that don't quite fit and you need hubs and stuff, then they're normally up at the barn being made that night, and we can pretty much test straight away. I think that's the beauty of what we can do is for the teams, is we can be very, very reactive. We're in tension mode at the minute. Sometimes we can actually recreate a stage, so we can put a whole rear mech on, and the computer actually controls the gear shifts and the cadence and the load. So we can actually recreate like tour stages and put a chain through a tour stage as well. So yeah, as well as that, we can put environmental stuff on it. So we have a Venturi spray with like a road grime, and then we've got a muck cannon that we use as well for the mountain bikers that actually measures a quantity of mud, because it's the repeatability it's the hardest thing to get. And yeah, we look after this pretty much like a Formula 1 car when it comes to the bearings and everything. And we always measure the same stuff on the same day, so it's always a comparative on the day, because there are a lot of variables in chains. So we're always doing comparative measurements. It's pretty much our workhorse, and like I say, it's forever evolving as well.
I'm just going to start this machine up. So it's a 15-minute test, recording every 25 seconds under tension. You'll hear as well, like if we stop talking maybe, you'll be able to hear. This is quite gritty. It's actually quite smooth, unfortunately, but it will definitely be better when we've got it clean and stuff. So now it's not sounding as bad as it did before, and the links are moving slightly better, because what it's done is just basically pushed all the grit and grime and rubbish. It's trying to drive it out of itself. So it's always going to be quite bad the moment you put it on, and then it sort of starts to sort itself out. It's not the nicest looking chain, but we'll get it nice and shiny now. We're going to go into our optimization tanks. So these are ready available in some of our selected stores across the country. So you can get a Peloton treated chain yourself, but you're not going to get the measurements and bits and bobs like that, the further bit of work that we do for them. But everything else from this in is exactly the same as you can get in the shop. So what we're going to do, we're just going to pop this straight in the tank. So this is our wash tank. And this is going to go through 2 rounds of 10 minutes ultrasonic clean. So the ultrasonic benefits is you've got the heat, as Martin likes to say, bang for your buck. You've got your heat, which reduces the viscosity of the liquid and the lube, more so the lube. And then you've got the ultrasonic sound waves that are pulsing, driving through into every part of the chain, through the rollers, through the links, into the pins and everything else. So we do a 10-minute cycle, one way up, pull it out, good scrub, goes back in, the other way up, back in again, good scrub, rinse off, airline. We use an oven just to make sure we've driven out all that moisture and all that degreaser. So finishes processing here. This is its last time in the tank. It's already done at 20 minutes now, so we'll just give this a good scrub off. I have already gone through, halfway through, scrubbed it and flipped it over. So this is just to agitate the last little bit, just get any grime that might be left on, just a bit of residue, just to get any of the last little bits off the rollers and stuff. So at the moment you can still, there's quite a lot of drivetrain cleaner and stuff in there, so it still feels a little bit blocked, but what we'll do, give it a fresh water rinse off, just to drive out any last little bit of grime and all that drivetrain out of there, just so we've got something good for the AF to adhere to, really. So we're going to put it in the oven after this, or you can use a quick dry and degreaser just to get that last, it's just belt and braces really, just to make sure you've got a nice dry chain. We like to put them in the oven just to know that it's 100% bone dry. Then we'll go into the lubing tanks and then back onto the jig. So I'm just going to blast out all the links. So now you'll start to, I don't know if you can pick up on my mic, but not very well, but there's a little bit of moisture still in this, but it's starting to, I can feel that it's starting to feel like a chain that's good and optimised, basically. It's looking good. The rollers are starting to polish. Still a little bit damp, but we're going to chuck it in the oven, give it 5 to 10 minutes in there. And then you'll really hear, once it's bone dry, how much there isn't left, or how much space there is in the rollers and stuff, really. And there's plenty more room to get some lube in there. But now, what we should have is a nice, clean, bone dry. You see it's quite shiny now. So you've got to bear in mind this chain has done 3 Ironman races, so there is a little bit of patina on it. It's not going to be as shiny as a brand new chain. So we're going to chuck it in the ultrasonic tank. Again, fully submerged, which is the best way to lube. Ultrasonic, so it's pulsing into all those gaps, and the heat of the lube, which has reduced the viscosity, so it allows it to flow in all the little gaps and nooks and crannies of the chain now. We've done our 20 minutes in the lube tank in AF, so we're just going to take the chain out, and I'm going to hang it up on our hook just above the tank, just to let any of the excess sort of lube drip back in that we don't necessarily need, not wasting too much as well. That doesn't happen very often, take a chain out without it being twisted. Pop it on the hook. Again, then we're going to leave that for, I would suggest, sort of a good few hours, just to let it sort of drip dry, and also sort of gravity filling itself as well. And then I do end up turning them around every now and again. Gone through its dirty measurement on the tension jig, 20 minutes wash tank, in the oven, and then into the lube tank. So that's ready to go back on the dyno. Same as what we did for Dan Bigham and the Ganna for the hour record chain. So Ganna's chain went through like 11 processes to get to where it needed to be. So it can be quite a lengthy process. We could keep going and going and going, but like I said to you earlier, there does become a limitation of how it works on the bike. We can get it to be nice and fast on our jigs, but we're not changing gears too much and stuff like that. But application of real world starts to bring it back a little bit. For the record chains and all that sort of stuff, I still think we will be at a fair few processes because we want that magic number. Again, put the weights on the tension test. The chain it'll change pitch. It will start to sort itself out, get the lube where it needs to be. So we're going to start this 15-minute test. And if you know, I don't know if you'll be able to pick it up on your camera, how much quieter that is from when it was grubby and horrible earlier. Cool, 50 minutes is up on the treated chain. So we're looking good, nice and fast, ready to send back out to her now.
Good numbers.
Good numbers, good numbers. Straight out of the packet, 3 retreats ago. Where did we get to now, Martin, sorry?
On this retreat, it's 55% from dirty to now.
From when we got it out of the packet this morning to what it is now, yeah. I would only want it to do one more event, if I'm completely honest. Just peace of mind from my side of it more than anything. I think it's got more in it, definitely, but from our point of view.
This is actually one of the coated rear cogs that we had coated in double quick time. It's actually the end of a long story to get that coated on in time, because obviously we did all the selection process with Dan to get it as fast as he can and to select the right cogs. But what we found was that the raw steel was very, very good, surprisingly good. But we thought we had a coating that we could make it faster. So we got a Tribo lab. So the benefits of doing tribology stuff is it's a lot more repeatable. We invested like over £250,000 in the Tribo lab and white light interferometry. So this allows you to take the repeatability problems out of the chain and onto the Tribo. So this, for example, when we were developing the Ludicrous AF, we had over 50 iterations before we even got close to it. So imagine trying to do, probably 150 chains, a lot of work. Whereas on this, it's repeatable. It gives us the coefficient of friction. We can start looking at wear. It's an all-round good tool to get product development faster. But it also allows us not only to look at lubes, but things like coatings. We actually put a new coating on the back that we weren't expecting to perform as well as it did, but we could measure the gains on the Tribo, and we got, it was a massive 50% saving compared to what was going to be on there on the coefficient of friction, and it actually transferred to like over 4% on the application. So whilst it was a drop, that means there's probably still stuff we can get out of it. It still equated to 20 to 25 meters on the track for him. The hardest part to start with was actually getting it on the dyno, because it wasn't quite what we thought, was it? It was.
No. Yeah. So we had a raw file come from Dan of basically some squiggly lines, but we put it into CAD and got a 3D render of it, and then we managed to get a model put together and then 3D printed. So that brings us onto these little bits and pieces. So we managed to print the splines up, which fitted onto the center lock. And we basically reverse engineered a flat 2D drawing to a 3D part.
It was really about getting ahead of the game before we had the final bits, because we wanted to turn everything around as quick as we could.
Yeah, we didn't actually have the cogs, did we?
Yeah, so at the time we didn't have the cog. We didn't have the bits to fit on the dyno, so we started with those, and then lo and behold, we managed to get the steel one made. So I make a lot of the parts out in the sticks, out in North Dorset. So we actually managed to make this one in double quick time, and then lo and behold, the one that turned up didn't have the new fitment. It actually had the original fitment.
Yeah, which we already had, but it was a slightly different pitch, wasn't it? So that was again another quick trip out to the barn to get another Boss machined up, just so we could continue.
And the thing like that, it always happens when you need something urgent. My lathe actually went down that night, so I was going to make it that night so we could test in the morning. My lathe went down, but luckily in my village there's another tool maker, and he came round at 5:30 that night and took it off my hands what I had, and then I was standing in the garden 10 o'clock with a beer, beautiful sunny evening, you know, sun going down, and I see him coming across with his big beard across the field with this in his hand. So he pulled a blinder for us and got it done, and then I met Lewis first thing in the morning in Blandford in the Gorge Cafe, and had a cooked breakfast, and then it was
Straight
over.
back for the testing, back to work.
So the benefit of what we can offer the teams and everything like that is the flexibility and the ability to work to Formula One type schedules. So
from a drawing to first model off the printer to then this one, we were just over a day, I think.
Yeah.
If that, possibly.
Yeah.
From a 2D drawing to 3D printed parts, a few different 3D printed parts to make sure we had it all nailed. It was
and everything,
just about a day.
Everything fitted first time.
And that's all helped Ganna break the hour record.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Without the hardware to put on the dyno, we wouldn't have been able to find the gains or measure the gains or give them the belief in the gains that we said we were there. You know, like I mentioned it before. The coating that was pretty tight for us to get that turned round. You know, that was an extra 20-25 meters just for that alone. So it's good fun.
So 25 meters just for that cog.
Yeah.
coating.
Yeah. There's still a lot of gains to be made with coatings and stuff, but we'll take that to start for the first one. So
what's it like watching Ganna do the hour record and knowing that your part of the bike helped him to break the record?
It was good. Both times, to be fair, for both our records, I've been lucky enough to be with the correct people at the correct time as well. So it's been special for me, definitely. Also a little bit nerve-wracking. I've got the same feeling as when I used to race, so a bit twitchy at times, but to watch it, it was phenomenal.
Ineos are great because they're great believers in the data. So I think that's why we work so well with them, and it's great now that Dan's with them as well, because you can see why what he does. It's all in the data, and from the start, it's always about proving the data. And I talked about it a bit before, but the psychology, if you believe you've got the fastest bits, you'll go faster anyway. So to have that data to back it up is I think what teams like Ineos see in us.
Definitely. It's like Martin just brushed on quickly then with the psychology. Like we label their chains up. He got a nice presentation box, it's all nice and neat in there. And he had his number 1 chain, and then in another little packet was our record sprocket. Just from his point of view, I'd imagine that he's seen this, it's nice and professional. I'm having that chain, that's my sprocket, don't need to worry about anything else. All I've got to do is get on and do my thing, really. So something we take for granted is the amount of time that we spent on this and the product that we also use. This, from getting that drawing from Dan to the last hour record of Ganna going across the line is 700 hours of our time. So with all the equipment that we've got in here and everything else and all the products that we use.
Of course, as well, there was 3 years of development in the AF. So again, that's the world's fastest and probably one of the world's greenest, if not the most greenest loop. But it's the ability to build on those products that you have, from drivetrain cleaner that work and you'll know you're starting with a clean chain, to the AF that's got some nice sort of chemistry in it as well that we know optimises well. It's continually building on the gains that we can find year in, year out. And if we didn't have the good products to add to it, I think we'd be struggling to get the savings that we do.
And some people say we're living a golden era of lubes at the moment. How much more potential or speed can we get from coatings and lubes?
That's a great question, because I think for me we're almost at a peak with the current sort of technologies with the lubes. When I started doing it, there was a watt between lubes. The top lubes are all pretty close now. I think there's much more to be gained with the optimization processes, and also with coatings and things like that. And the beauty with AF, it works very well on well-conditioned chains. So you've got that life cycle of the chain thing extending, which, if I'm honest, we've been all about speed to start with, but with a product like AF that works well on old chains, then you know, the focus is switching. So I think, yeah, I'd be nice to see a big jump in a lube, but I'm not expecting it. I think there'll be gains from optimisation and coatings, and maybe even different technologies in chains.
And what's your biggest tip for the person watching at home who hasn't got access to all this sort of equipment to maintain the chain and get the best efficiency possible?
Just be very, very thorough with cleaning drivetrain, basically. If you're able to take a chain off, then that's the best way. You can put it in a pot and put some drivetrain in there, old paintbrush. That's an old school way of doing it. But if you haven't got the ability to take the chain off, or maybe the tools or something, or the space or anything like that, you just be very, very thorough with how you clean. Good amount of drivetrain cleaner on there. A good stiff brush. We sell a claw brush that gets all into the cassette and all into the teeth of the pulley wheels and everything else. So it's just, be very thorough, good rinse off, and make sure it's dry. That's a massive key one, I would say. A dry chain. Once you've got a nice clean drivetrain, apply a drop of lube to every individual link. It's a little bit tedious, but it's the way you know every part of your chain is coated. A few back pedal rotations, microfiber just to get that last little bit off that you don't excess lube that you don't need. Leave, depending on sort of what lube you are using, if you're using our dry lube or our wet lube or our AF lube, leave for the required amount of time before you go out, and then go out and enjoy it for some free speed.